Good day to you, Alex. How are you? Are you fitting well?
I'm very well, thank you, Colin. How are you doing?
I'm good. Summer's about upon us.
Yeah, you'll be getting the shorts out soon, eh?
I don't know about soon they're actually on now, but we won't go into that. Usually, when we see each other, it's obviously much colder and it's under the bright lights of the exhibitions at a place in the sun.
That's right, yeah. So it's good to see you remotely here in Spain, eh?
One of the things I wanted to discuss with you, Alex, we're getting record number of inquiries with regards to people wanting to relocate to Spain. Which, hey, how could you blame them? Huh?
Yeah.
Um, Now, obviously, after Brexit, things have become, a little bit more difficult, and there's certain things that we need to be aware of. And we're forever getting questions about visas. Now, one of the things I wanted to discuss today, by far, and you can maybe tell me the statistics. My understanding is by far the most common visa out there is the non-lucrative visa, or the NLV. Um, Outranks all of the visas by some measures. The vast majority of the clients that we speak to would fall into this category of applying for an NLV. So I just maybe wanted to, with your permission, fire some questions at you and have a bit of a discussion to help everybody understand the intricacies of the non-lucrative visa, if we may.
Yeah, sure, far away.
Perfect. Um, the obvious place to start is who really is the NLV most appropriate for? What kind of person is going to be the archetypal applicant for an NLV?
Okay, so basically, post Brexit, Brits are restricted to 90 days in 180 days. So they've got to leave after those 90 days. If they want to spend longer, then they've got to apply for a visa. And like you say, the most popular visa is the non-lucrative visa. And that visa basically means that people from outside of Europe, so non-Europeans, or arguably Great Britain is still in Europe, but we're not part of the EU.
Yeah.
So basically, Brits, Canadians, Americans, New Zealanders, Australians, they, as non-Europeans, Chinese, etc., would have to apply for a non-lucrative visa to come to Spain to spend more than 90 days, right? And the process is that they have to apply for that visa from the Spanish consulate in their home country. And
Okay.
they get that visa, they come to Spain, and they are not allowed to work. So they're actually retiring and residing in Spain.
Okay. So that's maybe where the kind of other name that it gets, it's often referred to as the retirement visa.
Yeah.
So that's obviously where that comes from. You mentioned there then, Alex, about applying for that within your own country. So let's talk about the UK market here, because that's who we predominantly service.
Yeah.
Where would those offices be in the UK then?
So basically, there's three Spanish consulates in the UK. There's one in London, there's one in Manchester, and there's one in Edinburgh. And obviously,
Okay.
they have their catchment areas. So depending where your clients are living in the UK, they would go to each one of those consulates.
So you would actually visit your closest as the crow flies, if you like, your nearest office.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's useful. Thanks for that, Alex. That's maybe somebody who should be considering it, who really wouldn't fit the brief, if you like, who really shouldn't be considering an NLV.
So anyone who wants to work in Spain shouldn't consider the NLV.
Okay.
However, having said that, what can happen is that you can actually apply for the non-lucrative visa, and after a year, you could change it over to a work visa. Okay, but
Okay.
you'd have to receive an employment offer. But by and large, Colin, our clients are moving to Spain, aren't working, so the
Yeah.
NLV would be the correct visa.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Alex. So we might have ascertained that a non-lucrative visa might be the right path of action for somebody. Then, tell us a bit about the qualification criteria. What certain tests do we need to pass, if you like?
Okay, so basically, what do you need? So again, if they go onto our website, the top right-hand corner of the website, we've got useful information, and obviously now they can visit our YouTube channel and your YouTube channel and view this video. But
Mm-hmm.
we've got legal advice downloads there, and we keep our non-lucrative visa leaflet fairly up to date, so people can go in there and download it. This is what they would need. They would need one, a Spanish address. Okay.
Okay.
They would need an address, and that address, Colin, that could be the address of well, usually it's the address of the property they're going to buy. All right.
Yeah.
They would need obviously their address in their home country.
Yeah.
Depending on their age, if they are retirement age, then they can apply for Form S1, which
Mm-hmm.
will provide them with medical cover here in Spain. If
Okay.
they're under retirement age, then they would need private medical insurance, and we can introduce them to insurers or sorry, insurance brokers who
Yeah.
can provide them with quotes for that insurance. Okay.
And you mentioned there about retirement age. I guess that's state retirement age then.
Yes, 67. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we have had, for example, someone who's married, someone who's of retirement age, married to say someone who's slightly younger. When they apply for that form S1, they can add a beneficiary, even if that person is younger to them. But by and large, that beneficiary, is their partner or married to them. Okay.
Okay, so that's quite an important one then. So only one if you're a married couple, only one of them needs to be of state retirement age.
Yes. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
interesting.
But it is quite important because they can both plug into the Spanish healthcare system, and they wouldn't then need private medical insurance.
Okay.
All right. The next document they would need is they need a clean medical certificate. So basically, we've got the wording for this certificate. They'd go along to their GP and say, look, I need this certificate to confirm that I don't suffer from any World Health Organization nasty illnesses like syphilis and typhoid,
Okay.
that sort of stuff.
All the good stuff.
All the good stuff. Yeah. And then a clean criminal record certificate.
Okay.
Now we do get clients contact us, Colin. They said, look, I did something naughty when I was younger at school, etc. Smoked a joint behind
The bike sheds.
the bike sheds. So, if it's going back 17, 20 years, they don't have to worry about it. But the Spanish
Okay.
authorities typically go back 5 years. All right.
Okay.
So after 5 years, then that basically conviction or misdemeanor, whatever they got up to, is spent, and they don't have to worry about it. Okay.
Okay.
So the authorities go back to 5 years. If it's a single person applying, then they would need to prove that they've got sufficient financial resources. And I'll come on to that in a minute. But if it's a married couple, then they would need a duplicate marriage certificate. I was speaking to someone earlier today, British couple, they got married in America. So they would have to apply for a duplicate marriage certificate from the States. And that certificate has to be within the last 3 months. So by the time the application is submitted, it has to be dated within the last 3 months. So timing is quite important.
I
And
can
again,
imagine,
we would help the clients with that.
Okay.
Okay. If they've got children, then basically they would need duplicate birth certificates, and again, dated within the last 3 months.
Okay. What about Alex? So you mentioned married couples there, and what about a non-married couple? Does that cause more complexity or?
Well, what it does, it means that they've got to prove that they've got more financial resources. So, which leads me on to financial resources.
Okay.
So, typically, a kind of a individual applicant would need about 28,800 euros in a bank account, right?
Okay.
And that can be a combination of savings, income from rental properties, or investments, right? But it can't be earnings because you're not allowed to work, right? So if you had two individual applicants, and they're unmarried partners, then they would have 28,800 euros each to prove, all right?
Okay.
For a married couple, it's 36,000 euros.
Okay.
Right? For a family of four, you're talking 50,400 euros. Okay. And these figures are reviewed on an annual basis and go up in line with inflation.
Okay.
Right. Now, so basically, we would help them with the documentation. They would present their document. They'd apply for an appointment at the consulate. They go along with their documentation, all printed and nicely ordered. They would say to the, here, Mr. Consulate, here is my documentation. Yes, yes, yes. When do you want to move to Spain? I want to move to Spain in 3 months' time. Great. They would then, usually the passport is retained, and they would be in, say, a week or 2 weeks time, they would be sent their passport with the visa on it for the date that they want to come into Spain. Okay. And they would then basically come out to Spain, and we would book them an appointment with the town hall, and we would register on the padron, which is the local census.
Yeah.
Once they're registered on the local census, we would then apply for an appointment for them at the foreigners office, and they would go along to the foreigners office with the correct forms that we would supply to them, a passport photo, and obviously their passport showing they've got the visa, and we would apply for their TIE for them. Okay. And then typically they would then have to go back, say, a week or 10 days later, or up to 4 weeks later, to collect their TIE. And their TIE is the foreigner's identity card. Okay. And this visa, the non-lucrative visa, is granted for 1 year. Okay. And then it is renewed in Spain. So after a year, it's renewed in Spain. And the bad news, Colin, is that the clients then have to go back and prove that they've got sufficient financial resources to live on for 2 years, because the renewal is granted for 2 years. So if you've got 2 individual applicants, they need to prove that they've got 28,800 euros each, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, for example, the married couple have only got to prove that they've got 36,000 euros times 2.
Yeah.
36,000 for each year. And if, for example, someone's receiving a pension, let's just say they're receiving a pension of 20,000, and they've got to prove 36,000, they could top up
By
proof
savings.
for the financial resources with savings. Okay.
Yeah. So you can see there quite obviously why this is really designed for people who are at retirement age. If you had no income whatsoever, you would have to have an enormous pot of money to support you over that period of time, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you've got to have a lot of money in the bank account, or you've got to have investments or income from rental
Some form of
properties.
passive income.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned we touched on healthcare a little bit earlier, Alex. So obviously for anybody who's going to move to Spain and have obviously had the comfort, irrespective of what you think of the NHS, it's a fantastic organisation. We've had obviously both been born in the UK ourselves. We've had the comfort of the NHS for a long time. How does the Spanish healthcare system differ to that of the UK then?
I listen. I think it's a national health service, and it's very good. It's the Spanish National Health Service is very good, and if you can plug in to the National Health Service here in Spain, then I'd recommend that you do that, because if you suffer from a nasty illness or an accident, then it's better to go to the National Health Service, unless you've got very deep pockets and you go privately.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing you can do, Colin, is after year 1 on the healthcare service, once you've been on the padron, the census, for 1 year, if you were under the age of retirement, so you've got private medical insurance,
Yeah.
after a year of being on the padron, you can switch over to what's known as the convenio especial, which
Mm-hmm.
means that you pay monies to the Spanish healthcare system to be registered. Okay.
Okay.
And that's typically about 60 euros a month per person. It might work out cheaper than private medical insurance.
Okay, that's relatively inexpensive.
Exactly. But I mean, in my situation, we're registered with the Spanish healthcare system, but also we have top up private medical insurance for quick appointments, quick, if you need a blood test, etc., you can get that done quickly on the private medical insurance.
Yeah, I have to say my experience of the Spanish healthcare system is only a positive one. If it means anything, Spain is a vast country in size, yet the population is only 44, 45 million. So I think because of that, the healthcare system, certainly from what I've seen of it, doesn't seem to be overrun in any way like it is in other areas.
No, exactly. I mean, it probably varies region to region, but generally speaking, we've again, after 30 years plus in Spain, we've had a good experience.
Yeah. Okay. I would very much advocate that. One of the things that we get an awful lot of, and the vast majority of our clients who relocate to Spain, obviously already have property in the UK, and part of the process of moving, there's many moving parts, if you like, but one major part of that is selling their property in the UK. How important, or how critically important, is timing in all of this then, Alex?
Well, it's critical. It's absolutely critical because, as you and I have discussed in the past, in Spain, when you move to Spain, the tax year runs from January to December.
Yeah.
And if you spend more than 183 days in Spain, then you become a Spanish tax resident and you'll pay tax on worldwide assets and income. So if someone arrives in Spain in September, because there's not 183 days left, they won't become a Spanish tax resident in that year. But the following year, they will. Now, Spain does actually tax individuals on any gains that they make from the sale of their main residence, unless you reinvest all the proceeds of sale into a new property. So, for example, someone comes and buys a property with Welcome Estates here in Spain. They've got their property here. Then they sell at their UK property and move to Spain. Spain would treat that property in Spain as their main residence and the sale of their UK property as a second residence. If they've made a gain on that sale, then they would tax them. However, if, for example, they didn't have a property yet and they were selling their UK property and investing all the sales proceeds into the new one, again, there wouldn't be any tax. But for example, if you are selling up in the UK and coming to Spain, I would always advise, don't spend 183 days in that year in Spain if you've made a gain on the sale of a UK property. So don't become a Spanish tax resident in the same year of sale of the UK property to avoid potentially having to pay capital gains tax. So you could sell your property now in, say, in June and move to Spain in September. Again, not 183 days, so you don't have to worry about the CGT issue. So this is a really important point, Colin. It's all about timing, yeah.
It smacks of getting all your ducks lined up in a row before you even start the process, isn't it? It's I suppose an accident waiting to happen if you stumble into this by accident. But what I've taken from what you've said there, paying capital gains tax on that property is voluntary. If you do the correct planning, there is no need to at all.
Exactly. So just I speaking to someone today, they were hoping to sell their property end of last year. They've moved out to Spain. Unfortunately, the sale didn't happen. Now they're now in Spain, and they're going to spend 183 days here. That person will be taxed on any gain that they've made on the sale of their UK property because they've sold their UK property in the same year as they become a Spanish tax resident here, already having a property here. If you're moving to Spain, just time it carefully. And obviously we're happy to speak to clients about that beforehand when we do that on a regular basis, Colin.
Yeah. I think one major thing for myself as well, Alex, we touched on, and one of the biggest things that a client will always ask is the financial requirements. And we get a lot of inquiries where clients will say, I've got X amount of money. But really, a lot of those people might meet the initial criteria to get into Spain, but we have to be very mindful of those ongoing tests, because the last thing we want to do is to have somebody here who qualify for a visa and then they fail the tests, the ongoing tests, because they don't have sufficient income or savings, etc.
Yes.
So my advice to anybody would be, you have to take holistic advice to understand the entire picture. It's not just about getting to Spain. It's being able to legally live here whilst you're under an NLV and be able to pass those tests ongoing to be able to stay here.
Yeah, exactly. And for example, you're moving to Spain. So obviously, that's quite stressful moving to Spain. It's
Yeah, it is.
buying a house and moving house is stressful, but selling a house in the UK, buying a house in Spain, moving to Spain, there's a lot of stress there. So you just, timing and knocking things off the checklist is a good idea. And also bear in mind, Colin, those clients might have, financial products such as ISAs, etc. Those products, when you move to Spain, because you're no longer a UK tax resident, you cease to have the tax advantages you've enjoyed up until the point that you leave. So
Indeed.
you've got to another a bit of advice would be talk to financial advisors based in Spain about moving those products over.
Good advice. Great advice. So to summarize then, if we could kind of wrap this up in a nice little nutshell.
Yep.
So an NLV is really designed for people who don't need to work, and they don't need to work by virtue of they have a large enough passive income, such as pensions, investments, rental properties. They can support themselves from an income perspective going forward. They meet the criteria of not having a criminal record in the last few years, and they can support themselves through healthcare, be it through an S1 or be it through private medical insurance.
Yeah, that's a good nutshell.
Excellent. Well, I think we've covered everything, Alex. As always, that was very pertinent. Excellent advice. As a non-lawyer, my advice to anybody is take advice as soon as you possibly can. My biggest piece of advice to anybody is myself and Alex are talking from two very different ends of the spectrum. I'm an estate agent, therefore often at the very end of the process where somebody is actually going to move to Spain and going to buy a property. My advice will always be is to take expert legal advice long before you even think about doing it, so you know that you've got all your ducks lined up in a row before you get anything wrong. Alex, have yourself a great day. It's always nice seeing you.
Likewise, have a good one, Colin. Get those shorts on.
Thank you very much. Take care, Alex.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.